When people think about World War II, they picture battles, tanks and strategy maps. But what rarely gets discussed is the fact that cold killed just as reliably as bullets. Entire units collapsed, not because they were outmaneuvered, but because they froze, starved, or simply lost the ability to rest. Civilian families suffered the same fate when fuel disappeared, buildings failed, and winter settled in with no relief coming. What's even more striking is how many of the winter survival methods that actually worked were quietly abandoned after the war, either because they were seen as primitive, inconvenient, or just incompatible with post-war industrial systems. Yet these methods kept people alive through winters harsher than most of us will ever face. Today, as energy costs rise and infrastructure grows more fragile, these forgotten winter hacks deserve another look. Not as nostalgia, but as proven solutions. Why layering mattered more than insulation alone. One of the most misunderstood World War II winter lessons was that warmth came from managing layers, not just piling on heavy clothing. Soldiers and civilians learned quickly that a single thick coat trapped sweat, which then froze. Instead, they wore multiple thin layers that could be adjusted throughout the day. Wool remained the foundation because it retained heat even when damp. Cotton was avoided near the skin because it absorbed moisture and stayed cold. The practical application today is honestly simple and effective. Use a moisture-wicking base layer, a breathable insulating middle layer, and a wind-resistant outer layer. This approach remains superior indoors during power outages, where managing body heat without overheating becomes critical. How floor insulation kept families alive while walls failed. Most modern heating focuses on walls and ceilings, but World War II households knew the ground was the real enemy. Cold floors drained body heat faster than drafty walls. Families layered newspapers, straw, rugs and even cardboard beneath sleeping areas and sitting spaces. In rural Europe, wooden pallets or planks were raised slightly off the floor to create an insulating air gap. Applying this today requires no special equipment. Even in an apartment, placing foam mats, folded blankets or cardboard beneath bedding can dramatically reduce heat loss. The principle is not comfort, it is survival through heat retention. Why shared sleeping was a calculated survival decision. Privacy vanished during wartime winters, replaced by necessity. Families and soldiers slept together deliberately to conserve heat. Body warmth became a shared resource. This practice was not improvised, but planned, especially during fuel shortages. People slept in the smallest room available, often sealing off unused spaces entirely. Today, during extended outages or heating failures, consolidating sleeping arrangements and closing off excess rooms can reduce heat needs by more than half. It is an uncomfortable truth, but one that saved lives when conditions turned lethal. Makeshift wind barriers, were absolutely crucial for preventing deadly heat loss. Back then, drafts weren't just a bit of a nuisance. They were seen as real threats. During the Second World War, civilians would seal doors and windows with whatever they had on hand. Cloth, tar paper, waxed fabric, even mud if you were out in the countryside. Curtains weren't hung for decoration, but rather served as important thermal barriers. Out in the field, soldiers would build snow walls or use canvas to block the wind before ever lighting a fire. These days, the idea hasn't changed much. Folks seal window gaps with removable insulation film, hang heavy curtains, or roll up towels to keep out the chill. The physics, honestly, remains the same. Stopping air movement is just far more effective at preserving warmth than simply adding more heat. Eating fat and timing your meals right was, and still is, essential for staying warm. Surviving cold weather meant a real shift in diet. During World War II, rationing put an emphasis on fats, not for a bit of luxury, but for the sake of heat production. Animal fats, oils, and dense carbohydrates provided that slow-burning energy you needed to keep warm through the night. Meals were often eaten just before sleep, all to help maintain metabolic heat. Even today, during winter emergencies, having a calorie-dense meal before rest can make a huge difference in your ability to tolerate the cold. It's not about overeating, mind you. It's about fueling the body at just the right time. Controlled ventilation, believe it or not, was vital for preventing condensation and illness. Sealing up a space too tightly led to another danger moisture build-up. Condensation would soak clothing, encourage mold, and bring on respiratory illness. Households during the Second World War learned to ventilate briefly and deliberately, cracking windows for just a few minutes, not hours, to let moist air escape without losing all the heat. Modern homes, honestly, face the same risk during winter shutdowns. Short, controlled bursts of ventilation can help you avoid illness without sacrificing the warmth you've worked so hard to keep. You know, dry feet actually mattered more than dry hands out there. Trenchfoot taught the military a brutal lesson that, well, civilians ended up absorbing too. Wet feet led quickly to injury, infection, and, honestly, loss of mobility. Folks would rotate their socks constantly, dry their footwear near any heat source they could find, and even used improvised foot wraps when socks failed. Even today, keeping several dry socks handy and changing them before sleep remains one of the most effective cold weather survival habits. When the fuel ran out, folks didn't just sit and shiver. They replaced heaters with movement. Stillness was actually dangerous, you know. World War II survivors managed to stay alive by keeping up light, steady movement indoors. Things like cleaning, repairing clothing, or even doing simple exercises kept their circulation going, but without working up a sweat. That balance, honestly, is still critical today. Light movement keeps you warmer than sitting still, but it's safer than pushing yourself to exhaustion. So, why was mental discipline treated as a survival skill? Well, perhaps the most overlooked winter hack was actually psychological. People stuck to routines to keep despair and fatigue at bay. Scheduled meals, shared tasks, and structured evenings, all that helped preserve morale and focus. Cold, if you let it, just amplifies hopelessness, which leads to poor decisions. Keeping structure is still a powerful survival tool in any long winter crisis, really. These World War II winter hacks weren't just clever tricks, they were the difference between endurance and collapse. They worked because they respected human physiology, physics, and, well, discipline. Sure, modern systems are more advanced, but that also makes them more fragile. The knowledge that once kept families alive through bombed cities and frozen countryside still matters today, and ignoring it would be a mistake history has already punished once. So, if you value learning from the past rather than repeating it, go on and subscribe to the channel, share this video with your fellow history enthusiasts, and help keep these lessons alive.